It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good morning, all. Craig, as you know, the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, made a decision to only move forward with a bill that would support Israeli defense programs rather than include similar funding for Ukraine and for Taiwan. A lot of people are somewhat surprised by this decision, particularly Mitch McConnell. I wonder what's your take on this?
Well, I'm following this from afar, but I'm following it. I think first of all, there's two wars. There's a big border issues. There's the Russians and the Chinese. I mean, it's a kind of a cauldron out there that policymakers have to deal with. I'm interested in watching the new speaker suddenly come up with ideas and approaches. I think number one, it's not going to get resolved quickly, meaning in the next few days. I know there's perhaps votes, perhaps discussions. I have a feeling this is going to get rolled up into keeping the government open, which comes the middle of this month. Having said that, while the reports suggest that the new speaker, Mike Johnson, may have his caucus behind him, you've already had a veto threat from the sitting president over it. You have and so the president wants this bundled. He's presenting another problem. He wants so much in the bundle that I don't know that he can get all of that, but he wants it bundled. The leader in the Senate, Senator Schumer, wants it done that way. The Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, wants it. I kind of, if forced to place a bet, would say I think I'm probably with the Biden, Schumer, McConnell forum group here, because I think for a new speaker to pull one over on those three would be a remarkable thing. Politics aside, it's also, it seems to me, an absolute necessity, just to reveal my own notion, that we continue to support the Ukrainians while at the same time needing to support Israel and provide whenever we can, however we can, relief in Gaza. It's obviously a horrific situation. I alluded to, maybe we'll come back to it, but I alluded to some of the issues the president's putting on the table, because I think, we'll see what Al has to say about this, but I think the conditions are such that the president can't, charge forward without realizing that you simply can't continue to increase spending at home while spending more abroad without consequences. And even a former Democratic Treasury Secretary this week, I believe, is arguing that this deficit situation is ever more alarming. I know we've said before in this program that events have a way of changing and the sands shift. Well, I have a feeling the sands are shifting. I think it's a very difficult set of issues for the president to navigate. I do think on foreign policy, but it's more a hope than a sense of certainty, that people will come together and find a path forward that provides the necessary U.S. leadership and support in both Ukraine as well as in Gaza and the Middle East.
Al, you've been watching this very carefully. This is an interesting moment for internal GOP politics. I know you're on the Democratic side, but a lot of people are still very much supporting Ukraine. It's interesting that they've taken this on as an issue and could be an issue in the next presidential election. What's your thoughts?
Well, I agree with the basic conclusion that Craig made. In a battle between Mike Johnson and Mitch McConnell, I'll bet on Mitch McConnell. Because I think while Republican support for Ukraine is decreasing, I still believe there's a bipartisan majority in both houses of Congress for Ukraine's support. And obviously, there's a strong bipartisan agreement in both houses to support Israel. So in the end, I suspect that will get done. But Mike Johnson, his first foray as Speaker has been aimed at trying to unify his Republican conference, and at the same time mollifying this hardcore, what I call the nutcase caucus that deposed Kevin McCarthy and put him in the job. And for the most part, that, fringe of the caucus, which is larger in the Republican conference than in most caucuses, is against Ukraine. The other thing he did in this package is he cut IRS enforcement, and they hate the IRS. His problem is that his approach is counterproductive. For him, for the country, it's a bad idea. For people who care about freedom in the world, it's a bad idea. And for the Republicans, it's probably going to wind up being bad politics because, and it's not going to achieve what he wants. So it's going to be counterproductive. It's going to delay the aid getting to Israel. As Craig said, it's probably going to be maybe thrown back into the final continuing resolution. They may be able to get it done sooner, but it's going to delay it. And it's going to add to the deficit because IRS enforcement brings in $3 for every dollar you spend on it. So basically, it's going to do exactly the opposite of what he wants to do. And this, this is a problem both parties have. Excuse me. But that's a problem of playing intra-party politics or intra-caucus politics at the expense of general election politics. I heard Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe this week say that who does this Mike Johnson approach help? It helps Hamas, it helps Putin and the Russians, it helps the Chinese. And it helps tax-cheating billionaires. Now, maybe that's a message that the Republicans want to take to the general election, but I don't really believe it's going to help with swing voters. So in the end, I suspect that the bipartisan majorities in both the House and Senate will pass something along the lines of what the president's proposed, what McConnell supports. Craig may be right. I'm sure there'll be some negotiations on the numbers. But I think in the end, a comprehensive package will pass because it's good for the country. The other thing the other interesting thing about the position that Johnson has taken, for all the Republican talk about the border, it leaves out any border assistance as well. So in the end, I think the president's package or something like it will pass. And in a sense, ironically, when the president wins in this case, McConnell wins too.
Greg, do you feel like there's a potential that this could grow as an issue and start to impact primary voters?
It feels like it for sure. In that, while normally we say that it's the economic issues that most affect elections, the question now is going to be raised, assuming, which I think we have to, that neither of these two major issues, either the Middle East / Gaza or the Ukraine, will be resolved before the election next year. Both of them are going to put the spotlight on the management by the executive branch. Both of them are very sticky issues. Everyone is watching. I saw some fake news about they had but it spread quickly, but then got shut down. Marines being offloaded of ships or something in the Gaza area, U.S. Marines. Well, that wasn't true, but the fear of our involvement, our deeper involvement, is out there. By the way, involvement at some level, since we have hostages over there, and we have 400 Americans, they're saying, inside Gaza, some involvement is seems to me not only appropriate but important. But the more this goes on, the patience of the American people, I think that's the problem with Ukraine. The patience of the American people to fund, to support, to participate with boots on the ground in these kinds of things wanes. So, maybe Israel can draw this to a close faster, and we'll be about the business of either putting in place another Palestinian Authority, but I don't know. That's asking a lot between now and a year from now. But if there's resolution, that I think probably helps President Biden. If we're really getting drawn into a deeper and deeper set of issues with Iran acting up, and perhaps others who seem to almost not be able to just sit on the sidelines, they have to engage in some way, shape, or form. If we have U.S. naval ships firing on hostile targets, it's going to be part of the election. So it feels like we're stepping into something where the ability to manage foreign crises is going to be important. Biden has the experience, but it's a very difficult task ahead, and it's very difficult to do the kinds of things we're talking about on these two fronts, while dealing with the Russians, while dealing with the Chinese, while running for president of the United States. So we don't need to make the case again, but there is a case to be made that perhaps President Biden has his hands full and should let somebody else run for president of the United States, but too soon to tell whether that's going to happen.
Al, you have the last word this week.
Well, I guess to the main question you just asked, as long as U.S. troops really aren't engaged, I suspect that these issues won't be major issues in the campaign. But, if the United States is drawn in, then obviously it will be a major issue in the campaign. I hope that the situation in Gaza is resolved before the election. Now, the long-term solution for Gaza won't be, but then it probably won't be resolved before the 28 or 32 elections either. But I think the immediate crisis, I hope, will be done by then. I must say that I watch it constantly, and I'm sure glad we didn't have to fight World War II with cable television. I saw a map of this refugee camp that the Israelis hit. And right in the center of it is a command center, an arsenal, communications center, all of the military apparatus. And right around that are mosques and hospitals and schools. How do you go after, all the military apparatus is underground, so there's probably stuff on top too. Because they built the tunnels, when the munitions hit, the damage was much greater because the structures collapsed with the tunnels. But that's a whole nother story. In terms of the primary election, the Republican primary, we had a big event last week because Mike Pence pulled out. And the other thing that didn't get the attention that it probably would have had we not had all these other crises was that Nikki Haley has pulled up even with Ron DeSantis in Iowa, and she had made a substantial gain, I think 10 or 12 points, and he had dropped 6 points. So you can see where the trends are going. Yeah. But that and Pence dropping out and Trump I mean, I think demonstrating dementia every day when he comes out of that courtroom. Maybe it won't affect his base, but his base seems to be, in Iowa anyway, less than 50%. And so, can we have a consolidation around somebody like Nikki Haley? If that does happen, that'll be a big deal, because that could upend that plus all of the trials could really upend the primary race. When part of Trump's strategy is to be in court for the civil trial, so people will think it's normal for a president to be in court when he's on criminal trial, we've dropped to pretty deep lows. I know the conventional wisdom is Trump is unbeatable, and that may very well be the case. And as a Democrat, you got to play that as if it's going to be the case. But I'm getting a sneaking suspicion that as when voters really get going, and if Nikki Haley can continue to have the momentum that she seems to be building, even though she's still far behind, things could change pretty rapidly. Mm-hmm. Craig's point about President Biden, I think, is an important point. And, these two crises, he's had a remarkable domestic policy legislative record. These two crises, which he's handled very well so far, and will take full time or almost full time, may, in the end, finally give him a reason to say, look, I've got to devote my attention to securing freedom in the world. And we need a candidate who can spend full time focusing on how we defend freedom in America, and go out with, basically declare victory and go home. I suspect, in the end, that probably won't happen, but I think the possibility may be growing. And we are getting closer to a new generation of leaders in the country.
Well, we have to leave it there. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thank you so much indeed. We'll see you next week.